Hello, wrestling fans, and this is our additional time, of course, for our interview with wrestling legend Chris Powers. Again, I'm Joe Lawson, joined here by our co-host Jackson Black. And Jackson, what a great privilege it is, to have Chris Powers here tonight. And Chris, welcome to Wrestle Talk. Welcome back to Wrestle Talk. It's been some time since you've been on the program. Now, I was going to tell you this particular interview is going to be kind of unscripted. And just no format, so we'll be discussing a few things and asking some questions. Fans, of course, if you joined us for the live broadcast on Wrestle Talk, you saw part of our interview with Chris Powers, and we are so excited to have you tonight, Chris. We appreciate
that. I do. It's a blessing to be here and a privilege.
And I think me and Jackson are really have some great questions for you tonight. And Jackson mentioned to me earlier today he was going to pick your brain a little bit, if that's all right. And,
that is fine. What's left of it.
Well, fans, welcome here, of course, Jackson Black, our co-host tonight. And Jackson Black, you and I were talking the other day, and you saw some of these matches with Chris. What were your thoughts about these matches? I'm sure Chris would love to hear.
The Cactus Jack one was awesome. I like that. That was really good. What was the other one that I checked out that I wanted to... Let me refer to my notes here. Okay. So what was it like working with Junkyard Dog?
It was an experience. Back then, breaking into the business, you respected these guys. And you learned to listen. That was the main thing, is listen and follow suit. If you didn't, you got your brain picked in a different way.
Well, I certainly, I remember you growing up as a child. I used to go to, of course, Big Bill Needham's promotion here in Knoxville, All-Star Wrestling, the 90s version, of course, of All-Star Wrestling. Lots of events held over at the River Breeze Drive-In.
True.
And the Roundup Club. I don't know if I should have went in the Roundup Club over there at that age. Of course, Fulton High School, and we've got some questions for you about that tonight. But we're so excited and so stoked you're here tonight, and we open it up to you too. Anything you would like to share with our viewers? Many of your, of course, former co-wrestlers, many of those that you worked in the ring with watching tonight, and this is your time tonight, and we appreciate you being here.
All right. Well, when I come on this show, I've watched y'all for the past couple of months, and it's been good. It's been very presentable, and it reminds me of the days when I started.
Yes.
And it was good. And I come up with a list of guys, and I hope this is all right to mention this.
Absolutely.
These guys set the bar in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and it was... Of course, you had Bill Needham, you had Terry Landell. First guy I worked for was Bob Polk, took over Southeastern Wrestling back in Kazanas. You had Rick Connors, of course. He's got his hand in everybody that ever come through Knoxville.
Yes.
He has. But you had Deke Rivers, Jeff Anderson, Tim Horner, Tony Anthony, The Stomper, Tim Fry, Joey Kazana, The Gladiator, Cullen West, Jimmy Golden, Ron Sexton, Johnny Meadows, Johnny Rayner, Donnie Lucas, Jackie, Chris, and Tim Reed, Tommy Pittner, Dewey Brooks, Tim Miller, LMA Reed, of course. I know you remember that name.
Oh, yes.
Thad Clark, the Samoan, Lance Cavett, and a guy named Brian Gilbert that I worked with out of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome guy. The new horns coming in, of course. You got Roger Rex. You got A.J. Kazana.
Yes.
These are some good kids. Rex Riley, Scott Savage, Mick O'Malley, Papio. You got Jacob Rayner and Tyler Rivers that carry a legacy of their own.
The second generation, and I believe that Rivers is a third generation.
He is. He's a third. There was Jody Rivers and Mike Powers, J Mac, the Heartbreakers, or Heartaches, I mean. You've got these guys, this new breed that's coming in. They're there to carry the torch now.
Yes.
They've got to realize that a lot of wrestling is not about being part of Delta and flying off that top rope. You've got to be on the mats.
Yes.
You've got to be able to handle yourself. And believe me, there's been a few times that there's been what we call some shoots.
Yes.
And those aren't fun.
No.
They're not fun at all. And I've had my share. But local wrestling in Knoxville it's there for the picking.
Yes.
You know, Terry's gone, rest his soul. I love him to death. He did a lot of great things here, and he was my manager for years.
Yes.
But Knoxville right now needs somebody to come in here and pick it apart.
Yes.
Take it. This right here is a good groundbreaker wrestle talk for somebody to understand that maybe to get in through your all's know-how, your all's knowledge, and say, hey, what do I need to do?
Yes.
And it can be good. It can be real, real good. And it's the 90s, the 80s, early 2000s wrestling around here, second to none.
Yes.
Second to none.
Well, Chris, you know, I dug up some questions, so did Jackson here, and of course we'll be talking with you and have spoke with you on the air tonight. It's a great pleasure to have you here. I want to ask you about a very popular, usually a popular story with you,
Okay.
and that's the story, of course, the summer that you worked with Ron Fuller's K-Town SmackDown here in Knoxville. I was there. I remember seeing you, and what a summer that was. And Ron Fuller, of course, really did great with all that.
Yes. I was only signed for 3 shows.
Yes.
And after the 3rd show, Ron Fuller and Ronnie West came in the back, asked me to speak to me. Said, hey, is your summer planned? And I said, no, not necessarily. Why? And he said, well, you've got one of the best gimmicks we've got going out here this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Finding somebody in the crowd, throw them in the ring. My finishing move was the leg drop off the top through a table.
Now tell us a little bit more about that finding someone in the crowd deal. So let's. This is the
I pulled a
exciting
guy
part.
out one time. He was just sitting on the front row. I pulled one guy off the back of the Backyard Burgers grill. Pulled one guy out of the bathroom, the porta potty. And you know, that summer really helped me.
Yes.
Even though I'd been in it for quite a while, it was good. The only other episode before that was I had got to know Mr. Fuji.
Yes.
Mr. Fuji did a show at Carson Newman College, and I was picked for something. Didn't know what it was. One of the shows we did at the Jeff County Fair, a guy named Alan Palmieri, which was the county mayor up there, said, hey, Chris, they need to see you out back. And I said, who? He said, just go out back. And it was a big stretch limo. Had no clue who it was. And I knew it wasn't my girlfriend, but, you know.
Yes.
So we got in there, and I opened the door. Palmieri got in the other side, and Mr. Fuji was sitting here. And, of course, WWE legend Pat Patterson was sitting right here. And they had offered me a contract.
Yes.
And it was what we considered a job boy thing, but it was $85,000 starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Second year was $125,000. Third year was an option. My dad was real sick,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always a homeboy.
Yes.
I didn't want to go nowhere, so I didn't.
Yes.
And you know, those were times that you look at that are special. The first time that was ever offered. Remember when Blackjack Mulligan came into Knoxville?
Yes. Yes.
I was El Santo under a hood.
Yes.
I was working with a buddy of mine named Jack Lakin. We had broke into the business together. I was going to get to go back. It was mentioned about tagging with Tony Anthony as the other Dirty White Boy.
Wow.
Jack Lakin was getting pinpointed around to go back as Ricky Steamboat's little brother.
Yes.
We were both alike. We were too stupid to leave. And had we known now what we knew then, or then what we know now, we probably would have went. So, you know, I've had my opportunities. I wouldn't change a thing about any of them, though.
You know, I was told by someone last week, Jackson was there too, that you had a chance, and you could have been, if you would have accepted that contract way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, today, you would probably a road agent with WWE just because of your experience. And I know Jackson is super excited about saying. I know she's prepared some questions here, and I have too.
Well,
and this is just
let me interrupt you one second,
sure.
just to finish your thing, and I apologize.
Oh, sure.
The thing at SmackDown at the Park, we stayed all summer.
Yes.
We got to stay all summer, and I got the privilege of working with Mark Henry, Terry Gordy,
Yes.
of course, the Rock and Roll Express, Tracy Smothers, and Tracy Smothers pulled me off to the side and said, he said, are you stupid or what? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, why have you never left Knoxville?
Yeah.
He said, you've got what it takes. And back then I weighed about 245. He said, you've got the build, you've got the know-how. Why? Mm-hmm. And he just shook his head and laughed at me. But anyway, go ahead, Jackson. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just gonna. I'm just like stuck on the people. Like Okay, so what was it like? I saw that you had a tag match against the Midnight Express.
Yes.
How was like?
Bobby Eaton, second to none work-wise.
Yes.
Light as a feather. I mean, he's good. He took care of us. But back then, the local guys that went, we knew what we were going for. But guys like Bobby Eaton, Kevin Sullivan, Cactus Jack, they knew how to make us feel like we're just as big a part of it. Mm-hmm. And they did. They made us all feel that way. The guys that went down there, Killer Kyle, myself, Joey Kazana, trying to think, Rick Connors, Thad Clark. That was a mainstay of guys that went down regular. Mm-hmm. Jeff Anderson went. But, they did. They treated us like we were no different than the guys there. Mm-hmm. Ric Flair made a comment one time. They was all talking about going out to eat, and he looked at us and said, y'all's money ain't no good here. Mm-hmm. He took the bill. And, that was special. That meant something to us because those guys are up here. We're under the table, And, but, like I said, wrestling in that day and time was special. We need to get back to that.
I have a funny story about Rick Connors. So there was a show that Keith Hart did up in Sevierville at the Sevier County Fairgrounds, that old barn building.
Yes.
That's out there. And many fair shows you've done at Sevier County Fair. Mm-hmm. But Rick Connors was commentating with another man one night on a show. Back then, Rick did some of that kind of stuff. And I was the timekeeper, and I had to sit under the table right next to Rick Connors' legs to ring the bell. I was supposed to be hid under the table, and it was definitely interesting. Speaking of Rick Connors, we heard of course from Joe Kazana last week, and we just have a little bit more time left during this segment. Of course, we'll be live on the air as well. To close things out for this particular interview, tell us about training, and actually to mention, Jackson Black graduated in 2021 from the Jacob Pritchard Wrestling Academy.
Okay.
And
I would say that's hard.
Oh, your mic fell down there. It's liable to happen. There we go.
It happens.
Sure, that's it.
I believe Terry Landell used to take those things off so much that it wears them out.
Rick Connors, when you got trained by Rick Connors, it started out, he tried to run you off.
Yeah. Jack
Lakin and myself met him at Chihuahua Park one night. A show was going on. And Dennis Condrey told him, take their money, run them off. Well, Rick Connors took us in, and I thought I was a tough guy. And I jumped on Rick one time. Mm-hmm. I picked tomatoes and corn cob out of my hiney for about a week. There was nothing but that guy's training was so up here that when you got through training, you knew you'd been trained. Yes. You was trained for a fight. You wasn't trained to wrestle. You was trained for a fight.
Now, Jackson Black shared some experiences last week with how training is now. It's there's actually they just started the new class and the recent celebration of the graduates. But back in the day, things a lot different. How would you say that things have differed from back then until now, as far as training? Well, it's a lot easier to get into the business.
True, it is. But I would say if he trained under Jacobs and Pritchard, it was just as tough as what we went through.
Oh, yes.
Because Tom Pritchard is tough as they come. And, of course, Glenn, be it that kind of man, but back then training was, one, you respected the business.
Yes.
And I'm sure they taught the same thing. Two, you respected the guy across from you because you're only as good as he makes you look and vice versa.
Yes.
And you've got to... You've got to know what you're doing in there.
Yes.
And that's the main thing. I would say the training he went through was every bit of as tough as what I went through. And if he made it that far and he come through their class, kudos to you.
We're going to ask you about that old ring, of course, that you trained in during our live program tonight. But Chris, thank you for doing this special extra interview with us, fans. And we hope you've enjoyed this. And we're going to be going, of course, to our live program momentarily, and we're we're going to be joined, of course, by Chris Powers, my co-host Jackson Black, and his special guest tonight, Will Kennedy and Rabbit Rogue, coming up on Wrestle Talk Live. Thank you for watching. Thank you.